The night was cold, and the sky was beginning to get darker by the minute. Ella, the mouse, and her mum scurried along the back wall on their way back home. A large, furry black cat sat quietly, his tail swishing as he watched them both with big, bright eyes.
Good evening, ladies. Where are you going? Isn't it a little dark for a stroll in the park?
Ella shuddered and drew in close to her mum. She snuggled in, curling her tail around herself.
It's dark, Mum. I can't see anything.
Come close, I have you.
Mum, is that a cat?
She said.
Oh, Ella, yes it is. But there's nothing to be afraid of. We are bigger inside than she will ever be.
Bigger than you? You strange little thing. Do you not realize I could fit your whole self into my mouth?
Quick, Mum, let's go. Why does everything look so much more swishy in the dark?
Ella said, with a shiver, and with that, they scurried quickly on. Ella tucked under her mother's tail as the cold wind of the winter whipped around her little pink nose, causing it to quiver just a little bit more than usual. Out of the reach of the strange and inquisitive cat, they huddled together for a moment in an old tin can that used to obviously hold something quite yummy. For Ella licked the edge of the can and with a huge smile went back for another taste. With a mouthful of sticky liquid, she said,
Why does it always get dark so quickly at this time of year? Why can't the sun stay up in the sky all year round? Why does it have to disappear? And where does it go?
Well, look at the sun, Ella. Can you see it disappearing behind the clouds? The hills? It seems to fall behind them.
Yes, it is as though it's sinking, Mum. But as it sinks, the world gets darker.
It is sinking, Ella. But it doesn't stay dark for long.
As Ella snuggled into her mum, her eyes grew big and wide in the darkness. She didn't like the dark, and tonight was especially darkest of dark. The sky seemed to have hidden all the stars for a moment, and Ella squinted her eyes tightly together to see if it would make any difference at all, but to no avail. As they sat huddled in the tin and watching the world fade into the darkness, a wise and polite voice spoke to them from the tall oak tree above the wall.
What a fine evening, ladies. Why are you hiding in that little tin? Let me see what long tails you have within. Oh, now, don't be shy. I don't mean to harm you, be rude or pry.
With that, Ella screwed her eyes up even tighter. What was it about the dark that made everything seem so much scarier? Why did all these big animals want to talk to her tonight? And why was she not at home yet? And so many questions for such a little mind. The sounds and sights around her sounded bigger than ever in the dark. Mr. Owl's tweet and twitter was louder than ever. It was sharp and piercing.
Tweet-too! Tweet-too! Hello, little mouse. What are you up to tonight? Don't be shy. I won't give you a fright,
he said, as he squared his chin and leaned down off the branch, looking at Ella square in the eyes.
Why is everything so different in the dark?
Said Ella.
Why do owls look so much bigger in the dark?
The evening was really beginning to put a chill around the park, as the wind made the trees rustle and the litter bounced along the pavements and into the gutters. Ella, now with her eyes screwed up tight and her tail curled under her mother's, made her way slowly alongside her mum. Approaching the sidewalk around the butcher's, the light twinkled from the light that had escaped between the gap in the blind onto the puddles that lined the streets. Mr. Byrne, the butcher, was shutting up shop and appeared with his big black boots, making the puddles dance.
Eyo, is that a vermin I see? I got to be getting rid of thee. You are not welcome here with your curled up tails. Be gone before I drown you in my pail.
Ella shuddered. She hated the rain, and the thought of a pail of water and in the dark, no thank you. They must get home, and quickly. She just hated the dark. Why did Mr. Burns seem so much bigger and louder than usual? His voice seemed so much shoutier in the dark. Out from under the undergrowth appeared a black and white nose. But not one, but two appeared, snuffling and moving the leaves around like a snowplow. Mr. and Mrs. Badger were out on an evening stroll looking for tasty treats.
These holes seem to get smaller and smaller by the day. I wish someone would widen them, I pray.
I think it may be your tummy gets larger. And just in case, you should probably lay off all the chocolate cake.
Mr. and Mrs. Badger's grumbling sounded scarier and more grumblier than usual. As Mr. Badger started again,
My tummy.
If only you could be small like that tiny little mouse. She has a tummy that will fit in her house.
I would be grateful if you would keep your eyes looking at things other than my Ella's tummy, Mrs. Badger. We are just on our way home and don't care for another stop.
Mrs. Mouse spluttered at Mrs. Badger with a crumpled, stern face.
Why does Mr. and Mrs. Badger's grumbles sound ever so much more grumblier in the dark?
As they continued on their nighttime journey, the dark seemed to get darker, and the noises seemed to get noisier, and the grumbles seemed to get grumblier, and the walk seemed to get longlier. They were moments away from their cozy little home when the pile of leaves under Ella's feet started to move and wander. She fell to the side with her little tail getting tangled with her mother's. She wobbled and fell onto her back, her little feet in the air.
Busy, busy, always busy. Time to make home and house. Move out of my way, you little fat mouse.
Mrs. Hedgehog's leaf pile looks like a monster, moving across the floor towards me like it will swallow me up.
Oh, Ella, darling, they are just leaves. Leaves, that's all. Now focus your eyes on me. We are nearly home.
Tidy up and pack away, ready for another day. Keep busy, keep moving, keep this duster moving.
Mrs. Hedgehog, snuffling and leaf pushing, looked even larger in the dark. Instead of a small pile of leaves moving around to Ella, it looked like mountains of leaves were coming across the floor like an express train, and she busily made her house all cozy. Ella shivered a long, shivery shiver and said,
Why does Mrs. Hedgehog's moving and shaking sound so much more movier and shakier in the dark?
She said as she circled in tighter to her mum. Her mum curled her tail tight around Ella, and she held her little face in her arms, and she spoke softly.
Ella, the world is never completely dark.
It's not. I don't understand.
She muttered from under her mum's soft arms.
No, Ella, look.
As Ella lifted her head, the wind blew and made the leaves on the big oak tree tremble and move. As they did, they fell softly to the ground, the branches revealing between themselves a bright and round winter moon. It beat down so beautifully, right on Ella, on all that surrounded her. Ella's eyes grew wide as they reflected the light. She cautiously looked around, peeking out from under her mother's tail.
Ella, look. The owl and the badger and the hedgehog, do they look and sound so scary now?
No, they don't.
For where the light had shed its beams across Mr. Owl's face, his face wasn't as hard and chiseled as it had looked in the dark. Mr. and Mrs. Badger's bantering suddenly seemed funny and humorous, and Mrs. Hedgehog's leaf pile looked fun and inviting for a game of leaf throwing.
You see, Ella, we are never left in the dark. In the true dark, that is. There is always light around. But sometimes we have to blow away the leaves, take away the obstacles to see it shining. And when it does...
When it does, the fear is gone.
Ella smiled as she basked in the light of the moon.
Yes, Ella, the world around you can seem like a dark and scary place when there is no light. And for a moment, you may feel afraid. But turn on the light and the darkness leaves. Always remember that, Ella. Darkness and fear can't stay where there is light.
Ella slowly let go of the grip of her tail. Her eyes uncrunched and her stature became tall. Her feet seemed to have a spring in them as she started to make her way back towards the park and the butcher's. Mum exclaimed,
Where are you going, little Ella? Home is the other way.
Oh, I know!
Ella said with a skip and a smile.
I know to tell Mr. Bird and Mr. Owl that they are not so scary when we turn on the light, just in case they need to know for tomorrow night.
Mummy Mouse smiled and sighed deeply. It was amazing how just seeing things in the light could take away the fear. Picking up her tail and scurrying after Ella, she ran off to find her intrepid explorer.
Dear listeners, the world around us can seem dark and sometimes scary. It is often hard to see things as they are when all we see is the darkness around us. But when we have Jesus, we have the greatest light of the world living inside us, deep inside us. God asks us to be like the moon to our world, to shine His light and His love and share the goodness of Jesus in the darkness, just like in the forest in this story. You have the power that dispels all darkness that fear creates inside you, and that power's name is Jesus. So tonight, and for all the nights from now on, remember it doesn't matter how dark the world around you seems. Nothing is scary when you shine the light of Jesus on it. So move aside those branches, let the leaves of fear fall away, and shine your light. Show the world the hope it longs for. The greatest moon, sun, or torch in the world, our hope in Jesus.
Thank you for listening to this audio theatre presentation.
Did you know that Audio Theatre is a listener-supported platform? That's right, because of the kindness of other people, you were able to listen to this story today. Will you help someone else hear it too? By donating at our website at www.manortheatrecompany.uk/audiotheatre. Thank you and see you next time.